At Capella University, you can learn at your own pace with our FlexPath learning format. Take 1 or 2 courses at a time and complete as many as you can in a 12-week billing session. With FlexPath, you can even finish the bachelor's degree you started in 22 months for $20,000. A different future is closer than you think with Capella University. Learn more at capella.edu. Fastest 25% of students. Cost varies by pace, transfer credits, and other factors. Fees apply.
Privileged and honored to have my mentor, Arthur Laffer, the most famous economist in the world. And that is true, by the way. He is the most famous economist in the world and one of the smartest economists in the world. Although Larry Kudlow is a pretty smart guy, too. Arthur Laffer, thank you so much for joining.
It's my pleasure, Steve, and thank you for the compliments. My mom would have actually believed you if she'd heard you say that stuff.
And you deserve the Nobel Prize, and I think you're going to get it this year. I think this is your year.
This is my year. Okay, 85 years old. I'll be able to enjoy it for a week.
So let's get right down to it. Let's start with this, that you and a very famous other guy named Steve Moore had a piece in the Wall Street Journal on Tuesday that seemed to really change things a little bit in terms of how the White House was approaching the tariff issue. And in that article, you and I recommended that Trump offers 0 tariffs for other countries if they would go to 0 on us. And what do you think about that? And the events?
Well, I think it's amazing. I think this has been behind Trump's ideas all the way along. Although obviously he can't discuss it with people what his fallback position is, obviously, right, or else it doesn't work. But I think he's been a free trader all of his life, to be honest. And he found it really unpleasant that all these other countries have much higher tariffs and quotas and non-tariff barriers against us. And It was just improper, and there was no way of getting them to reduce it unless you threaten the living hell out of them. And that's exactly what he did. And I think right now there's a very good chance that the success will be a lot lower tariffs and a lot lower trade barriers and a lot freer trade in the world and a lot more prosperity and a lot less war.
So you're bullish.
I'm really bullish. Look, it can always go sideways. And if it goes sideways, it's really terrible. I mean, as you know, the Smoot-Hawley tariff, the Nixon 10% import surcharge, and I could go on, really hurt the economy. And also on the other side of it, I mean, the Kennedy round tariff negotiations led to a huge boom called the Go-Go 60s. Reagan's thing with NAFTA and Clinton's thing with NAFTA led to a huge bull market and a great prosperity and peace in the world. So it works both directions. And if Trump does it right, we're going to have the greatest boom ever with peace.
And so Trump is now saying, I want your advice about China, because it sounds like Trump is sort of trying to isolate China economically. He basically is putting much higher tariffs on China than these other nations. What do you make of that?
Well, I don't think he's trying to do that specifically. I think China's been the worst performer in the world. And that puts them out there alone. And also China has a lot of other bad actions that it's been taking.
Hold on. Just
tariffs.
A second. When you said the worst performer, you mean their stock market, or what do you mean?
No. I meant their tariffs. They have a lot of protectionist legislation in China. Okay. They protect all the industries there. They have a lot of non-tariff barriers. They steal
Are
trade
they worse
secrets.
than
I
Japan?
could go on and on. It's a race.
Even worse than yeah.
Okay, it's a race. Japan is really pretty bad on that stuff too.
I know,
but I think China's bad in addition to that on the Taiwan issue and a lot of other issues there that we have real conflicts with them. And I think Trump is using his leverage with China to get them to come back and become part of the family of nations. And I think Trump really honestly does like Xi, and I think Xi does really like Trump. And there's nothing that would be better for the world than a peaceful, pro-growth, prosperous China, not belligerent, not trying to attack everyone, not trying to steal stuff. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think there's a good chance that China joins with us and becomes a much better nation as a result of Trump's policies. 100 years from now, Steve, China will exist. And 100 years from now, the U.S. will exist. Why not have peace and prosperity in that 100-year period? Let's just try it. And then, they're the perfect trading partner for us. On comparative advantage terms, I can't think of any country that would match more to make America prosperous and make themselves prosperous than China.
So, this is an interesting point you're making, Arthur, because the history. I mean, you've taught a lot of this to me that in the 1980s and 1990s and through the early 2000s, China was on a freedom march towards freedom,
Yep.
and both economically and politically. And then they sort of reversed course and they reverted back to communism and government central control. So it seems to me they're going to have to choose one path or another. We learned from the Soviet Union that central planning doesn't work very well. So how do you see this playing out in terms of Beijing?
Well, let me just say that in 1970, I was the first American in modern times, mind you, that went to China. I went with George Shultz and John Ehrlichman on Air Force Two.
What year was
that? And I was the only staffer, George Shultz and John Ehrlichman, and their wives. And I was the only staffer there. We had a secretary, Jana Haruska, and a guy who paid the bills and stuff, Todd Hullen, who was our advance man, and that was it. I mean, that was the whole group. And I went in there cross-armed thinking I was going to hate China, thinking of the Korean War and all that. And I fell in love with China. And there's nothing that would be better than matching China with us. And they did do an amazing supply-side revolution. They cut taxes incredibly in China, denationalized the industries and all that. They locked their yuan to the U.S. dollar. They outsourced monetary policy to Alan Greenspan, and they went free trade, and they grew way more. I think they grew 60-fold, Steve, in real GDP per adult. And, now with Xi, they have fallen back. They've gone back a little bit, and, it's sad, but they can come back again. And if we encourage them, if we trade with them, if we act nicely to them and ask them to reciprocate, they've got to stop this stuff with Taiwan. They've just got to.
Yeah.
And they've got to stop this other stuff around the world, like the Panama Canal stuff. And Trump has called them on all those. But if they came in and had a serious negotiation, a serious long negotiation with Trump and team, I think we could develop a tremendous friendship and trading partner with China. And that would really de-escalate all of these hostilities and war threats. It would be super for the world. I'd love to see the world working without a major threat of a war. I just would love it. And he's going to take care of Ukraine and Russia. Trump is. He's going to take care of the Middle East really well, with the Houthis especially. And all of that's going to lead us to a really, peace and strength.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
This episode is brought to you by Greenlight. Get this. Adults with financial literacy skills have 82% more wealth than those who don't. From swimming lessons to piano classes, us parents invest in so many things to enrich our kids' lives. But are we investing in their future financial success? With Greenlight, you can teach your kids financial literacy skills like earning, saving, and investing. And this investment costs less than that after-school treat. Start prioritizing their financial education and future today with a risk-free trial at greenlight.com/Spotify. Greenlight.com/Spotify.
Llévate más de lo que esperas todos los días con el nuevo McValue en McDonald's. Ahora puedes comprar uno y sumarle otro por $1. Así que cuando tu equipo favorito enfrenta a sus rivales, enfrenta tus antojos con $5 Meal Deals. Y si estás corriendo para alcanzar el desayuno, corre al app para llevarte ofertas antes del cutoff. Tú decides, y con McValue, tu decisión siempre rinde más. Precios y participación pueden variar. BOGO $1 válido para un producto de igual o menor valor. Debe estar registrado en Rewards para ofertas en el app.
Is anyone out there?
Another salesperson enduring the endless search. Exhausting. If you want to get right to the right conversations, you need LinkedIn Sales Navigator. Whether you're looking for new leads or strengthening existing relationships at your top accounts, get right to the right conversations with LinkedIn Sales Navigator. Try LinkedIn Sales Navigator now with a free 60-day trial at linkedin.com/trial. That's linkedin.com/trial.
Terms and conditions apply!
So that's a great outlook, and I think that could very well happen. I hope it does, because I think.
Well, I hope so too, Steve. I mean,
real prosperity.
As you know, I'm not nearly as good forecasting the future as I am the past. I'm really good in the past.
You're really good at that.
But
all right.
Yeah,
so
but the future is a little difficult.
Now, I want to change subject because we only got a few minutes left. I'm talking to, of course, the great economist Arthur B. Laffer. The tax bill, they passed the tax bill now out of the House and the Senate. It looks like we're moving well ahead. We want to get that done as quickly as possible. What is your take on the tax bill at this point, and why is it important?
Well, the tax bill is really important. My take on it is I get all of my take on it from you, Steve. I mean, you follow this stuff really carefully, and I haven't followed it and I haven't done it. I just assume it's going to be passed because you're working on it and you're negotiating with them and you're doing it. My take on it on the economic side is it will remove a lot of uncertainty as to what's going to happen to taxes on December 31st this year.
Right.
That's going to do, and especially on the death tax. The death tax, depreciation, and also the personal income tax. Now, the corporate tax rate's going to stay at 21. I would love to see that bill passed and continue with the very pro-growth policies that Trump put in his first term. And that's what I really want to see and think we should have. And you assure me it's going to make it through, and I'm really pleased with that prospect, to be honest. Really important.
Okay, so there is a little bit of a curveball, though, here, and that is that we're now hearing from some Republicans, and I'm not going to mention names, but some Republicans with some influence are now saying they want to raise the highest income tax rate, which you taught me is a really bad idea. And so right now, the top rate is 37%. They're talking about maybe 41%, but that's not even going to raise revenue, is it?
No, in fact, every single time in the history of the whole income tax, and that's my book with Brian Dimitrovic and Gene Sinkfield, for the whole history, every time we've raised the highest marginal income tax rate, the economy has underperformed, tax revenues have gone down, and the poor have been hammered. And that's not something Trump will stand for, and that's not something you and I will either.
Well, explain to people, because that doesn't seem entirely intuitive, because you would think if you're going to sock it to the rich, then only the rich are going to be hurt. You're saying the poor get hurt.
Well, the rich hire lawyers, accountants, deferred income specialists, favor grabbers, politicians. You heard now that they're going to require all the congressmen to wear barcodes so that we all know just exactly how much each one costs.
I love that idea.
Now, and of course, rich people have the means and the ways to be able to circumvent taxes. If you get taxes low enough for them, they'll pay their taxes fair and square. They're Americans just like all the rest of us if they do that. If you try to take the money from them and cheat them, they're going to hire this and get around it. And they have more money than we do to pay them off. And so every time we've raised tax rates on the rich, these people have raised their sheltering and done all that and paid a lot less in taxes. Believe me when I tell you that you've reported those numbers year in, year out, Steve, every year. The percentage of total taxes paid by the top 1% is I think it's 40% or 42% or something.
42, yeah.
Yeah, it's a big number, and you don't think they don't think they can get around it. Of course they can. You need to make the tax codes basically voluntary. If it's not voluntary, people are going to fight you every inch of the way, and that's not what's good for the economy.
So this idea of a 42% rate I agree with you. I think it would do great damage. And say that point again, because it's so important. By the way, the book, you neglected to mention the name of the book. It's called Taxes Have Consequences, right? Taxes Have Consequences?
That's Taxes Have Consequences. Laffer, Sinkfield, and Dimitrovic. And it's it's doing really well, by the way, but it's a complete history of the U.S. income tax by period. It's fun to read. It's not a book that you read from cover to cover, by the way. It's not a good suspenseful, but you can cover any of those periods in there with great detail, the speeches, the stuff, what the shelters were. Chapter 2 has all the tax shelters that people have used historically. People are really clever when they can figure out tax shelters and stuff. And, and they can hire those lawyers. So that's what happens, Steve. And it would be very silly of Congress to try to raise the highest tax rate. It should, if anything, be made down to where Reagan had it at 28% and just leave it there.
So one last question for you on the way out. This is the great Arthur Laffer, and that is this. So Steve Forbes and I had a piece that we wrote recently where we said, why don't we just go to 15% on everything, a 15% flat tariff on things coming in, a 15% income tax, a 15% corporate tax, a 15% capital gains tax, a 15% death tax, just 15% across the board. What do you think?
I love it. Now, I did that one for, remember I was Jerry Brown's economist when he ran for president in 92, and he had 13% on all of those.
13,
so you're right in there with Jerry Brown. Now, he had 2 taxes. He had got rid of every federal tax, every single one except for the sin taxes. And we had a 13% tax on value added and a 13% tax on gross income, gross unadjusted income. And that was it. And that would have included the death tax and all of that you mentioned. Tariffs, it would include the corporate. It would include all those together. And that makes perfect sense to me. Congratulations. And it's great. And if Jerry Brown could get a little bit younger quicker, we could run him again and win.
So we have this is the 50-year anniversary of the Laffer curve. And by the way, there's Arthur, I think you'll get a kick out of it. There's a Broadway show that is really hot in Times Square called "Real Women Have Curves." And I thought, well, maybe we should make a poster. Real men have curves because you've got your own curve yourself.
Oh, Jesus. Steve Moore. Steve.
Anyway.
Oh, my God.
I want people to know, Arthur, that we're taking it on the road. You're coming to Palm Beach, and then we're doing something in Washington, D.C. We're going to go up to New York. So we want people to participate in that. Really, this is the curve that really changed the world. And congratulations to you. And was it really written on a napkin?
It was written on a napkin. Now, it wasn't written on the napkin first. I did it in my classes there, but I did do it on a napkin with Don Rumsfeld and Dick Cheney. That was with Jerry Ford's Whip Inflation Now program, how they weren't going to collect 5% more revenues with a 5% surcharge. They may collect 4% more, but not 5%. They may even lose revenues. And, of course, then I drew that curve on the napkin for them. And, lo and behold, I mean, it's so obvious.
Yeah.
And I didn't develop this. It's not my curve, by the way. That was Jude Wanniski who named it. Well, it's been around for 1,000 years at least.